It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap, and now my favorite part of the show where we get Tim to reveal what's in his background if you're watching this. And I just got a feeling it is a bag of unmarked cocaine. Luck be a lady tonight, Tim. I think I'm on to something here. Am I right?
You are not.
Okay. What have you got for us? And let's see. It's
the short stairs. It's Air Force One. It's the short stairs. It's the ones that Joe Biden has to take now because he keeps falling down the full-sized ones.
I didn't realize that he's taking the short stairs. I didn't know that that's the story with him. Well, kind
of like short bus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that, which reminds me of Mika Brzezinski on Morning Joe. She just came flat out and said that this is the fault of Biden's staff, that they should just be covering up for him. They should make it easier for him to negotiate stairs while they're doing it this way. She says, do a better job because you can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president like going the wrong way. Of course, what we want to do is we want to camouflage the necessity for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. Sure, that's what it's all about, Mika. I actually have a story about Mika, and I was, occasionally I get on the Twitter or rampage and I can't stop on certain topics. And a few years ago, it was Mika because for some reason, there was a Freedom of Information Act request that was granted, and a lot of Rahm Emanuel, the then mayor of Chicago, a lot of his emails became public, and one of them was from Mika. And she, in an email to him, had asked him to do a favor for her mother, who's, I guess, a sculptress or something, and wanted her sculpture placed prominently in some Chicago park or something like that. She was asking for a favor from a politician when she's a journalist, and it's a clear ethical violation. And it's like, and I screamed about it, but of course, it doesn't matter.
So which park is the sculpture in?
I don't know that it was ever in any park or whatever. But I mean, it's just, the chutzpah on the part of Mika to just, and then of course, nobody makes any big deal out of it. It's like, no, it's fine. It's MSNBC.
She said that they should have been more careful of that sandbag to prevent the president from tripping.
Yeah,
it seems the Secret Service is up to their ears, covering up for another bag right now.
Exactly, and that is interesting. That we tape on Thursdays here, and this came out today that Hunter Biden. They don't know who the bag came from, which of course means that it came from him. I mean, they should have put the prints of a dead man on there or something, and say that a D.B. Cooper, and we can't find him. Somebody, but
apparently the bag was planted as Russian disinformation.
Oh well,
go with that. It worked last time,
right? Or that it was Karl Rove or somebody put it in there. Yeah, I just. It's unfathomable. And then there's nothing to see here. It's forget about it. The mainstream media won't make a big deal out of it.
Just a little cocaine in the White House. Heck,
right.
50 years ago, we had meth in the White House. So
right.
What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? So, of course, somebody will be able to sneak in anthrax or whatever, because it doesn't really matter at all. So anyway, that story. And speaking of Joe Biden, so another story came out, and I love the spin on this one too. And it was that they're admitting that he's rude to his staff, rude like old men are, who have no control over their impulses or emotions. I know I'm getting there. I mean, but he's like that, and they try to give the portrayal of him as good old Uncle Joe, like Uncle Joe Stalin, I guess. He's just a mean old nasty man, and of course, as Byron York tweeted, Joe Biden in January 2020 said, "If you ever work with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I will fire you on the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts." Well, that's for the employees, but not for Joe. He doesn't have to act in a good way. So
is this news? Is this? I mean, haven't we always noticed that
no, we've
Joe's
known
a bit of a
about
pill?
Well,
I remember him challenging that supporter to a push-up contest.
Right. What was that phrase that he came up with that nobody knows the meaning of?
Lion dog face pony soldier.
Yeah, or corn pop or something, whatever. Yeah, that one too. Yeah.
I think this whole thing, it's Axios' way of saying, oh no, he's not senile, he's in charge. In fact, he's very much in charge.
That's the
so
spin
much in charge that the people don't like working around him.
Right. Right. So Charlie Cook and National Review, and you have to understand, I mean, I grew up, National Review gave me my vocabulary. From William F. Buckley, I learned phrases like immanentize the eschaton, which, I still don't really know what it means, but it's fun to say. And Latin phrases like mutatis mutandis. I mean, this is where you strengthen your vocabulary muscles. Charlie Cook, who's a great writer for National Review, has a column headlined, Joe Biden is an asshole. Now, I mean, it's like, hey there, but I got to tell you, it's recommended reading, because if you want to just get a quick catalog of all the horrible things that Joe Biden has done, in a nice lilting way. I mean, Charlie Cook, my favorite thing that Joe Biden did, which I think is the quintessence of his evil, is when his wife had that auto accident and Joe Biden blamed it all on the other guy and even claimed that he was drunk, and none of that was true at all. and he was actually a Biden supporter too. And the guy went to his grave unhappy, and the family had to make Biden stop, but it didn't matter. So that to me is like the worst. It'd be one thing if he said it once out of emotion, but I think he repeated this story a number of times. I mean, that to me is how bad Biden is. But Charlie Cook and his piece on this in National Review, it's just a parenthetical phrase. It's amid all the other allegations against Biden, the plagiarism and the made up stories. Right. So, I mean, as I've said about Biden, I don't know where the dementia, the pathological lying ends and the dementia begins. But and it does seem like they're trying to. Axios' spin is that he's a tough guy. But at the same time, it seems like other people are saying they're trying to smooth the runway for him to be ushered out of here on that short flight of stairs.
Well, that actually seems more like a preventative. It's like, oh no, we want a guy that's that much in charge. It's demented. No, and the truth is, of course he's angry. It's he keeps accusing Kamala Harris of being the nurse who stole his Kleenex.
Well, she's another story, which we'll get to. But so there's this other story, and I swear now I've got a case of Bidenism. I told our producer Chris to put it on here, and it was something about Michigan. Michigan GOP was kicked in the testes, and I don't even remember what the story was about, but you're from Michigan, and let's see. Yeah, here it is from Mediate. He kicked me in my balls as soon as I opened the door. Crazy GOP brawl in Michigan ends with cops an ER visit. Republicans in Michigan got into a fight, resulting in police intervention and an emergency room visit after a Saturday confrontation. Yeah, so it's I'm just hoping the first debate among the GOP contenders turns into that, and somebody nails Tucker Carlson while they're doing it. But yeah, that's how elevated our discussion has become. The rhetoric recently, and the GOP contributing that way. And that's your favorite Michigan. I was hoping that your sister, who is a GOP rep from Michigan, wasn't involved in that.
I didn't get it quick enough to get in type. She could have been. I mean, she's the type. This seems to have happened like in northwestern Michigan, where at a hotel. So it was probably like the northwestern Michigan GOP, which is she's southeastern. So
thank goodness. It's they don't associate with them northwestern types.
It was a party function. It wasn't, it didn't actually happen in Lansing at the in the office building. So
yeah. So
And you know how it is when you're away at a hotel on a
Oh,
convention.
yeah.
Gets a little
I mean,
rowdy.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. So so there's this movie, Sound of Freedom, which I actually saw the reviews panning it before I even knew what the movie was about. There was like a preemptive strike against it, like in Rolling Stone this is, a far right-wing fantasy and all that. But it's about sex trafficking. It's child sex trafficking, and it does exist. It's not the Pat Fitzgerald story. Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit, but it does actually exist, and you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or conservative to to just admit that this kind of thing happens. And the movie is doing fantastically right now.
It's based on a true story.
Yeah, and it's killing. Go ahead.
And I think what's going on with all these with it all being panned by the left media, it's actually the Streisand effect. I didn't know about it till I saw the bad reviews as well.
There you go. And the Streisand effect is, I mean, I can intuit that, but what did she do something once where she
said that she wants people to stop looking at the pictures of her beachfront house.
Okay.
And nobody really bothered to look at the pictures of her beachfront house until she said that, and then
I get it.
All of a sudden, it just flooded. The picture was just all over the internet.
All right,
if she had kept her mouth shut, maybe 5 people would have seen her house.
Feel sorry for Babs on that one. Always will enjoy her rendition of "Happy Days." The sad Happy Days. Yeah. Oh, she had me at that. All right, Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap.
And I again want to thank the Secretary for your work. This issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go. It's that basic.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. And I'm thinking Kamala, after listening to her, if she just threw in a malapropism here, a Spoonerism there, she's the next Norm Crosby. She's.
Well, apparently it isn't clear what the Department of Transportation does since Mayor Pete took over.
Well, that's true. She had another one, and I mean, it's redundant to put these on, but she had another one recently about artificial intelligence, in which she explained what the A and the I stand for, and it was very it was almost Dr. Seussian, but
well, that's why she's the artificial intelligence czar. It's because she knows what those 2 letters stand for. I think she's the only one there that does.
I think she's like, the first building block ever in artificial intelligence, rudimentary artificial intelligence. And we've gotten to 2.0 since then, and probably 3 and 4. Yeah, she's my father-in-law was over on Sunday. He's 93 years old, bless him, and a lifelong liberal Democrat. But he likes to solicit my opinions on things, even though he knows I'm conservative. And he says, so, yeah, that Kamala, she's got to go. And I said, no, you don't understand. Biden's got to go. And he didn't understand that one.
But she has to go first before Biden can go.
But the thing is she's not going. She's not going anywhere. That would undermine everything that the Democratic Party stands for. They've got to prop her up more than Channel 7 has to prop up Cheryl Burton. I mean, or the Supreme Court has to prop up Justice Ketanji Jackson.
She's staying harder than the affirmative action policy at Harvard in the wake of the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing.
Here's the problem, as I see it, is that by their nature, Democrats think they're smarter than the general public, which isn't that bad when you're operating on a high level. However, she's not that smart. So she thinks
no.
She's of average intelligence, so she thinks that everyone is below average intelligence,
right?
And she has to speak down to them. and comes off as humorous.
Well, that's an interesting theory. I just think she's struggling for words all the time. That's funny. During the Kavanaugh hearings, when she was laying into Kavanaugh, I thought she was mean-spirited and she was totally wrong, but she was coherent. Okay. You could, I think when she's striking out like in one or two sentences, she's okay. But if she has to compose a couple of paragraphs on the fly, it's kind of difficult, and she should be limited that way. But
she knows how to vamp. I mean, that's as a former broadcaster, you probably she thinks she knows how to vamp.
She doesn't know how to vamp. She can't. I mean, she can't talk about anything. She's the classic, person with a blue book in front of him in an exam, and you've got the question in front of you, and you got to figure out how to fill out the pages or come up with 300 words, on an assignment, and and you make or two or three pages on an assignment, and you triple space, and you make the paper half the size that it should be, and then you fill out 2 or 3 pages.
So she's working without a font enlarger, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, and it just happens again and again and again, and nobody's going to tell the empress that she's not wearing any clothes, I guess. So going back a little bit to Hunter, because why leave this? Jake Tapper, there was a tweet on him about how he is going to cover what's going on with Hunter, and if we could roll up that tweet, but he said, to wit, and I quote, "CNN's Jake Tapper goes after mother of Biden's 7th grandchild and her political ties." He says, "For the sake of fairness, Navy's mom, who had the incident with Hunter that resulted in this beautiful child, has been caught up in some far-right folks. Of the incident, let the record show, was stooping." The incident. Oh my goodness! I mean, they know how to use euphemisms, I guess. It
was
CNN.
Either stooping or a real good lap dance.
Well, the two are not mutually exclusive, I guess, in some circumstances. So anyway, getting back to Justice Jackson, the aforesaid Justice Jackson, I think it's the more and more people plumb the depths of or lack of depth of her dissent in the affirmative action case, and this goes for Sotomayor too. They're finding there's no there. She had said in the affirmative action case that for high-risk Black newborns, having a Black physician more than doubles the likelihood that the baby will live and not die. And the only problem is that it's not true. Other than that, as I'm reading from this tweet from David Kroom from the Daily Call Out, the citation was taken from an amicus brief from the Norton Rose Fulbright law firm. I wonder what that has to do with the William Fulbright or William J. Fulbright. Since the ruling, the firm has stated that the statistic was either misunderstood or invented. In other words, not true. In addition, the term high risk was nowhere in the brief. So other than that, it's just fine. I mean, she would have flunked a legal writing paper in at any fly-by-night closed cover before striking law school.
Well, there is actually a scientific study that actually did look into it. That actually, and what they found was could be. I didn't quite understand it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
I tried to read it.
All right.
But it does seem that there is a disparity in babies delivered, Black babies delivered by white physicians versus Black physicians. But it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that half the babies delivered by white physicians die, which is the way I think that it came off.
Okay.
It's the percentage increases like from 0.0012% to 0.0024%.
Oh, okay.
So it doubles the.
Well, she should have been a little bit more careful on that, because the appearance is that,
Well, you think she got there because she understood biology? Huh? You think she got there because she understood biology?
The difficulty is statistics. There's no question about that. speaking of people in the administration with problems, I mean, Merrick Garland, and I hold no brief for Merrick Garland because he made the It's Academic team at Niles West in 1970, and I didn't make the It's Academic team at Niles East in 1971. And, he's considered, beyond reproach, and he got aced out of being on the Supreme Court. I mean, it just seems more and more like every day that the guy was sitting on this investigation of Hunter Biden, that they're trying to use this not DA, U.S. Assistant U.S. Attorney in Delaware as the scapegoat because he was a Trump appointee, even though he really didn't have any power, and really even statutorily, the power belongs to Merrick Garland to pursue this case. And there's all kinds of, he's got the conflict. You can't investigate your own administration. Good pick of Merrick Garland there. He's slow walking the whole thing, and it's of a piece with what was discovered today, which was that they're not, they just couldn't find any fingerprints and couldn't figure out, whose bag of cocaine it was. I mean, this just happens over and over and over again with the Bidens, and that's just,
and it works because the mainstream media doesn't cover it. So that it's, the illusion is more important than the reality. It's, it's why people in North Korea think that they have the most prosperous economy on earth.
Right. Well, that was, and speaking of the economy, everybody was going crazy that food prices went up only 2%. Yeah, from last year, but I mean, it was already high, and people know what's going on. They know that their wages have not kept up with prices. They see it every day, and they don't care what some flunky in the administration is telling them.
Is that 2% year over year, or is that 2% month over month?
It was from I think it was from. Now that's a good question.
Because it seems to me that the prices have gone up every single month.
It was a 2%. Well, I think either way, you had a big hike last year. The fact that the hike isn't as big now doesn't mean it's not a hike, and your wages aren't keeping up with it. And that's, people don't need to have all those statistics to know how it's impacting them, and it's real. And so they can say whatever they want to say about that. Speaking of the grocery store, did you see this item about checkout counters? They now have slow checkout counters. Instead of go racing right through them, you can go slowly. So I guess so that you can talk to the cashier. I mean, this is as opposed to like having AI at a Del Taco or whatever, where they're not even having humans anymore, but you can actually have the slow line. I mean, you've got the express line and you have a slow line as well.
That's the way it is in the airport when you get on that moving walkway that's about to stop.
Right. Exactly.
Is that it's divided right down the middle. If you're a slow person, you stand on the right. If you're a fast person, you run on the left.
But for people who want to have a conversation with the cashier, they can do the slow walk. And it reminds me, I was in the Walmart with my mother just last November. She was getting some items, and one was like some coffee creamer or whatever, and the Walmart cashier couldn't get the barcode right or whatever, and so my mother tried to help out. And this is the story. Dutch supermarket introduces unique slow checkout lane for lonely seniors who want to have a chat. Anyway, my mother wanted to have a chat. She tried to be helpful, and she told the checkout woman, I think it's about $3. I was thinking, Mom, I mean, they don't take estimates. This isn't like the corner drugstore, like in Green Acres, where Sam Drucker's store, where give me a couple of ears of corn for that, and do the barter system, or about $3. They like to have it exact, but my mother would be suited for that line. She's not lonely, but the checkout.
Joe Biden actually stopped to have a chat with one of the British guards. Did you see that?
Of course he did. It wasn't on purpose. He didn't even know that he was in Great Britain. And King Charles. I mean, King Charles is probably rolling his eye. I waited 50 years to do this. Really?
Yeah, no, he was rolling his eyes. He's trying. He had to actually grab him by the sleeve and yank him because Biden's sitting there. He's got, hey, what's the matter, bub? What's the matter? Don't you got something to say, bub? You want to do a push-up contest, huh?
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Tonight, a college football hazing scandal rocking the Northwestern community. The allegations, locker room behavior targeting freshman players subjected to a practice called running. The punishment for making mistakes on the field described as a coerced sexual act. A former player who says he reported the behavior to the school in November of 2022, now speaking anonymously to the school's campus newspaper, the Daily Northwestern, calling the practice, quote, egregious and vile and inhumane behavior. What did that former player claim was happening in that locker room?
A group of 8 to 10 upperclassmen would restrain another member of the football team, that member often being a freshman, and
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on
the
Weekly Wrap. So the big story, and I know I care a lot because I went to Northwestern. Little bit.
Did you ever go through a car wash?
Even the regular car washes, the real car washes are the ones that I'm worried about when, they're raising money for the high school and you get all those soapy cheerleaders and everything. I mean, that's the sex scandal. But apparently, this was going on at Northwestern, and I came up with a slogan for this, or, a catch line, and it hasn't caught on. But when I was going to Northwestern, 50 odd years ago, there was a student referendum, and we tried to name the school after Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze because the Wildcats are purple.
Sure. And
of course, the administration rejected it. But this should be Purple Hazing, right? I mean, isn't that? But nobody was going for this.
Well, actually, I think the purple is the color that you come out the other side of the car wash, right?
Yeah, I think, and the dry humping as well. So the thing about this is that, I mean, this is Pat Fitzgerald. This guy is the quintessence of honor and dignity. He was given a 10-year contract, which he's still got $42 million worth on, and he's going to Dan Webb to get it, make sure that he gets that and more if possible. And they come out with this study, this investigation for 6 months, and they say that he didn't know anything about it, or they can't show that he knew anything about this hazing, but that he should have known. And, I got to tell you, as a parent of a number of children, I had these kids years later telling me, we did stuff. It's just, you can't monitor all this stuff. And I don't mind if they, if the proponents of getting rid of them say employ strict liability or absolute liability and say, look, it happened on his watch. Doesn't matter whether he knew or whether he should have known. We're just going to we're just going to get rid of you. And as I'm being prompted by Chris on this, if you look at the timeline, the whistleblower in this case was basically a scholarship quarterback who got aced out of the starting job by a walk-on. I mean, they have it like on November 26th, and then on November 30th, something else denigrating happened. And then a couple of days later, there's an anonymous complaint. The administration about this. So, yeah. And then, of course,
well, if you go through the car wash and don't get to be in the starting lineup, I'd be a little disappointed.
No, I totally understand that. I mean, right. I mean, you paid your dues. You've done the car wash. You've had the dry humping. And, you should.
And also, these are all adults. I mean, we're treating them like children. I mean, granted, college kids are kids, but they're still adults. They're legal adults. Why would they're responsible for their own action?
They're adults when you want them to be. They're not adults when you don't want them to be. Look, I think there's no question the whistleblower was disgruntled. There's no question that Northwestern had a 1-11 season last year and had losing seasons in 3 of the last 4. You don't think if they'd won the Rose Bowl or the national championship, this would be happening. Then there was like the Score radio station. They thought they'd piggyback on this. they had people complaining to them about the Northwestern baseball team. If you think nobody cares about the Northwestern football team, and not very many people do, you should see how few care about the Northwestern baseball team. I did play-by-play of Northwestern baseball when I was in school. Wow. They didn't play in a stadium. They played on a field at Wells Park on campus, and I was doing it on the campus radio station, and there was nobody listening and nobody in the crowd. And I mean, it's the baseball team.
Do they use 16-inch balls or the regulation?
Well, who knows? I don't. Maybe they hit off a tee for all I know. I don't remember. But I mean, it's gotten so silly, and that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Northwestern chess coach is under fire right now for muttering under his breath how hot the protagonist in the Queen's Gambit was. Cha-cha. So then just to show you how unserious they are about this, they fire Fitzgerald, but they don't fire any of the staff. Well, if anybody knew about it, it was the staff who are closer to the players than the head coach. And it's like getting rid of Joe Paterno, but keeping Jerry Sandusky. It's just ridiculous. The guy, he's a real straight arrow, Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, that's what's so anachronistic about him. He didn't like cell phones. He didn't like email. He was kind of like a crew cut kind of guy, but he was very inspirational and charismatic, and the players would kill for him. I mean, you are talking about guys who pound the crap out of each other. And so, be one thing if they were dry humping. I'm not, justifying that, but it'd be one thing if it's dry humping on the chess team, polishing the bishop, as it were. Hey, wait a minute. No, but it's another thing. And this has supposedly been going on since before Pat Fitzgerald. So like 20 years ago, and nobody ever knew anything about it. Corey Wooten, who was the captain of the team, went to the NFL. He was interviewed. He said, I didn't know anything about it. The coach, if coach knew about it, he would have stopped it because he's a great guy. Didn't happen on my watch. It was supposedly commonplace, but nobody knows about it, and he's supposedly the one to blame for it. I love the virtue signalers on sports radio. We're talking about apparently the baseball coach who's under fire too, told a female assistant he wanted her in the press box and not in the field because he didn't want the players being distracted by her tushy wiggling around on the field. And this is so terrible, but it's the sports radio stations talking about a sports radio station that has one woman on one day a week, because in 30 years they have deigned to have women around
for the same reason.
No, it's because guys want to talk to each other and they don't want to talk to women. I mean, look, but they want to be virtue signalers. It's a classic NIMBY case right there for them. So anyway.
The players are going to ignore the cheerleaders and focus their attention on the commentator. That doesn't seem.
It's look. I hope Pat Fitzgerald gets whatever he wants, $100 million, and goes. I'm wondering how they feel about this at Alabama. Okay. Are they laughing at this, saying this is part of the prerequisites? I mean, to get into the starting lineup, or since the Alabama players are literally professionals, do they have their agents make sure that they don't have to be subjected to this? So whatever. Speaking of school children, so I saw this tweet about high school seniors are woefully ignorant of basic facts about U.S. history. If we could get that tweet up there, it's they don't know nothing about history. And don't
know much biology.
Yeah, right. 72% didn't know we fought Hitler during World War II. 87% didn't know we entered World War II because of the attacks on Pearl Harbor. 60% didn't know which countries we fought in World War II. 13% thought Dwight Eisenhower was a general from the Civil War. Here's the thing.
Well, by the same token, 72% think that Donald Trump is exactly like Hitler. 87% right. think we entered World War II because we were colonizing Hawaii.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I've got sympathy because I know what it was like in high school. The calendar is only so long in high school. And I remember us getting stuck in the Stamp Act, which is when 17 something or other. And by the time we're done with that, we're already way behind schedule. I don't think we ever made it past the Civil War. So I mean, it's all a blur to me after that. So I mean, I get it that you can fall behind. And this is from Chris. Best Norm Macdonald joke ever. Isn't it crazy that only the good guys have ever won a war? Okay, yeah, there you go. So
well, that's because God helps the good ones.
It's very Calvinist, no question about it. There was speaking of students, saw this picture. It's to me, it's a good visual. I'm sorry for those of you just listening to it, but it was about students getting vaccinations was it some Southern California college here? And if we could show the picture. And the only thing I noticed about it says Santa Clara University students must take COVID vaccines or withdraw. And the only thing I noticed, I don't know if you, Tim, maybe I'm just a dirty old man right now. I don't notice the girl getting the needle in the arm. I noticed the fact that I must be very juvenile. She's not,
well, I think first of all, Bruce, it's wrong to assume that that's a girl.
That's true. Absolutely.
That could be.
I don't see her pronouns on there.
That could be a morbidly obese fella.
It just doesn't look like it, judging by we want to get down to brass tacks here. It looks like the arms are very nice and toned, and it looks to me like sure. There's no bra on there. I mean, come on, girlfriend.
It was not cold.
Right.
In the
I don't
either.
think you should. I mean, I don't think if you're going out in public to get vaccinated, that you should be wandering around like that without brassiere on. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Okay. Meantime,
nice way of getting people to look at the YouTube version of the podcast, isn't it?
Right.
That's all it is. That's all you're doing.
All right. We'll end this segment now. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
50,000 people, the largest crowd of the season, showed up at Chicago's Comiskey Park for the twilight doubleheader between the White Sox and the Detroit Tigers. 15,000 others had to be turned away. Many had come for Disco Demolition Night, a promotional gimmick. Between games, as planned, a huge box containing thousands of disco records was blown up. The rest was unplanned. Fans stormed out onto the field in the thousands. Disco records were hurled like frisbees. Bonfires were set. Bottles were thrown. The batting cage was torn down and destroyed.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Yeah, we just passed the 44th anniversary of Disco Demolition. I mean, were you aware of it at the time? Do you care about it?
Well, I was growing up in Detroit.
Oh, sure.
So
it's like, hey, we won both games.
We won both games. Secondly, Steve Dahl was originally he was brought into WRIF, I believe, to replace outgoing Howard Stern.
Whoa, that's a little bit of history. I mean,
Steve Dahl was in Detroit for about a year before he got the nod, the tap to go to Chicago.
Right, and we're talking about 23 and 24. And that's how long ago it was. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was W4. It was W4. I think. It was not WRIF.
That's WRIF. A little bit of trivia. Yeah.
WRIF though actually had a Detroit rockers engaged against disco, and it was the Dread Club. So that we were also very much on that we hate disco thing, and you could actually get a Dread card from Dick the Bruiser, signed by Dick the Bruiser. So so we hated disco too. So it was very, very much a touchstone for people in Detroit as well as Chicago.
And yet, you weren't willing to also forfeit the game. You took the victory in the second game of the doubleheader. That frosts me. But you had your cake and ate it too. I get that. So I have this theory. Nancy Faust, whom I know, and it was the Sox organist for years. She was on the there that day, and she actually tweeted the script, the rundown for the whole day there, for the whole evening there. And you look at the script, records are going to be exploded. This one's going to make this announcement, and then the field's going to be cleared. And what's funny is that the field was never cleared. I mean, that's what happened. And so I have this theory on how I could have thwarted Disco Demolition, because you probably don't know this, but I used to do this bit on the radio, which was like, name that White Sox player's tune, where I said, and I'm going to imitate Nancy Faust on the Hammond organ. When you're out of Hammond, you're out of organ. And you name that White Sox player's tune. Because, she had, this was before there was walk-up tunes and everything, but she always had like a little ditty that she would play for a player. And so, and I would have said, and then Nancy would have played it and would have been, and then I would have gone to the crowd, and who was that? And they would have gone, Woody Woodpecker, Wilbur Wood, that's his tune. And then everybody would have sat down and been quiet, and there never would have been Disco Demolition, and the rest would have been no history. So, but we didn't get to do that. So, and the field was destroyed. And it was, I mean, I actually remember where I was. I was driving home from night law school in the summer. Not just night law school during the regular year, but you also had to go 2 summers in order to become a lawyer. And I'm driving home, and, absolutely exhausted because I've worked all day, gone to law school at night, driving home, turn on WGN radio, because that's, what you listen to in those days. And Jim Lockman, the newscaster, is doing the report on this, and he's trying to do it straight. But he mentions the name of the group that Steve Dahl had, the Insane Coho Lips. And when he said that, he couldn't help himself. He started laughing. Okay. And Bob Collins, who would later become, the great WGN, success. But he was doing the show at that time. And he goes, that's not funny. But it was fun. And I mean, I was a big White Sox fan, and it was like, it was the most hysterical thing in the world that the field had been taken over. And I'm never going to forget Disco Demolition. Now, fast forwarding 44 years, I know you didn't watch the baseball All-Star game, right?
I did not.
Okay, neither did I. Just watched the last couple of innings and didn't recognize anybody, especially because they wear the National American League uniforms. Half the attraction of the All-Star game is seeing all the players in their different team uniforms. But anyway, everybody's got this complaint. Cal Ripken. You remember Cal Ripken, of course?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Set the record for most consecutive games played. He gave away the most valuable player award after the game was over. And I don't know if we have a shot of that or not. But first of all, Kevin Burkhart's the announcer for Fox on there. And Kevin Burkhardt points the microphone to Cal. Cal grabs the microphone from him, tries to grab it. It's a microphone, to a sportscaster or somebody in TV and radio. That's like a gun to a cop. You don't give up your microphone to somebody. So Kevin Burkhardt's holding on to the mic while Cal Ripken is like wrestling it away from him. So they're both holding the mic. Okay, that's one thing. But then Cal was wearing a sports jacket. And so you could see underneath his shirt and everything. And all I can say is that, my, oh my, boy, did it look like Cal had consumed 2,632 calories. That day. I mean, and if Cal Ripken can't stay in shape, then who can?
It probably like Babe Ruth had too many hot dogs.
Oh my goodness. It's just too bad. I mean, that guy played in all those consecutive games and was totally in shape. And then, hey, 22 years later or whatever, you don't have it anymore.
You retire.
Yeah. So did you see this really frosted me because they showed this picture of Miss Netherlands, who's a transgender. Okay. The second place finisher is unbelievably beautiful. The first place finisher looks like Bill Hader. Okay. And I tweeted this like the morning after it. I then saw 2 tweets like in the next day saying the same thing. It's like everybody thought that this Miss Netherlands looked like Bill Hader.
Bill Hader wins Miss Netherlands.
Oh my! And there's also been this rumor, a false rumor, that Bill Hader is going to be the next Batman. So it's been a great week for Bill Hader. He won Miss Netherlands, and he could be the next Batman, or maybe Batman will be a transgender. There's a picture if you want to see. I mean, at first blush, it's like, oh, then you know, oh yeah, it's a guy. Okay. Well, no, whatever.
It's a man.
Miss Netherlands. Oh my goodness. So
yeah, you don't want to see those Netherlands.
Oh no. So the best news in the world is that Disney World apparently Bob Iger has admitted that Ron DeSantis defeated him. Okay. And that Disney shouldn't have gotten involved in this legislation, the anti-gay, don't say gay legislation in Florida. But Disney's really put itself in a hole because we got a graphic up there from Jim Pethokoukis. The wait at Disney World is really very short now compared to the way it used to be.
Wow.
And it's because people aren't going. Now, Jim Garrity in National Review did a little analysis of it, and it's a combination of things. One is that they priced themselves out of the middle class. It's like to see these Star Wars characters for a couple of days, it's like $5,000 for a family. I mean, it's ridiculous. Wow. So, but it goes hand in Goofy's hand with the fact that Disney's become woke, because who can afford to be woke? It's the elite, and but unfortunately that's not enough for Disney World to sustain itself. So they're going to have to come back to earth at some point, and maybe Iger's going to lead them there.
It used to just be one day a year where the LGBTQA plus people would converge on Disneyland, and it wasn't even actually officially sponsored, but it was one day a year, and it's nobody seemed to be bothered by it.
Yeah, but now this whole philosophy is part of their core, and you see it in their movies and everything, and it's not working. Speaking of which,
if you watch their movies, you would see it in their movies, but that doesn't seem
nobody's
to be
watching.
Happening either.
In that vein, I guess Costco is no longer going to sell Bud Light. I think Bud Light is like finished. I would make a run on Bud Light now. I mean, it's collector's items. You'd want to. You'd want to get the last cans of Bud Light.
Sure, that Dylan Mulvaney can is going to be worth a lot of money in about 20 years.
At some point, I mean, it's going to be. I mean, how a brand actually destroyed itself overnight. I remember when the new Coke disappeared after a couple of months, but they were able to resurrect the old Coke, and they're just fine.
Well, they admitted they were stupid.
Yeah,
they admitted they made a mistake. They admitted that they ignored their core demographic, which Bud Light refused to do. It's because they're Belgian.
I mean, that's a good sign, right? I mean, it's a good sign that we're maybe coming back to normal. I would just hope so.
Or at least Bud Light drinkers are.
Yeah. Yeah, and finally, they're getting rid of the New York Times sports desk. It's being absorbed into the Athletic, which the New York Times bought. But nobody needs sports stories. I mean, you need to know when Pat Fitzgerald, has committed the heinous sin, but other than that, you don't even have to know what Northwestern did in a football game. So that's
well, I'm guessing anymore that the New York Times core demographic are the ones who got picked last at sports.
Oh, totally. Well, here,
high school.
And I'm one of them. Here's the thing. What I want them to do is they're not getting rid of any of the sports desk employees. I'd like one of them at least to be the continuity person between the crossword puzzle and the spelling bee, because in the crossword they recognize the word aurora. But in the spelling bee, they don't recognize that roar. And I can't tell you. I mean, I feel like I am going through the car wash for when that happens. Great week. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.